Hi.
Hello.
This is Ray, and welcome to Northside Democracy for America. We believe the largest grassroots political organization in Illinois. As previously mentioned in our last meeting, we normally meet the second Wednesday of the month at Chief O'Neill's. But things remaining different as we continue to stay put in the safety of our homes. For the time being, this new way of communication is our new normal. For a while, we tried to keep ourselves informed on how to navigate the current political landscape. I want to go ahead and give a huge shout out to Hardlands Media. Thanks, Jerome, who is helping us out. He's producing our show. Joe will be our other host for tonight, asking intelligent questions and keeping us on our toes.
You didn't say they had to be intelligent. All right.
Oh, darn.
I'll try.
Yeah. And Sophia will miss for 1 month, but she'll be back next month.
And tomorrow, we'll get to that.
Oh, yes. We want to recognize everyone else in the steering committee. There's Mary, EJ, Matt, Kevin, Mary Claire, Sophia, Joe, Melissa. Welcome. Good to see you all here. Normally, you become a voting member by attending 3 meetings and 3 activities for endorsed candidates. However, the meeting part of the equation has been frozen at your status in March. Since we can't afford face-to-face, we are giving activity credit to people who do wellness checks through their ward or state rep. Those are still going on. Our 2020 NDFA benefit, yay, will be taking place tomorrow, Thursday night, beginning at 7:30. Tickets are still available. They haven't sold out.
Not at all.
In addition to the benefit, an online auction is taking place right now on our website, northsidedfa.com. Later on in this broadcast, Joe will be giving you an in-depth review of all the unique and cool items up for auctions. I can't wait.
Me neither. But we have business to do before that.
Yes. So our guests this month are Mariana Spiropoulos, who is an Illinois Biden representative and an MWRD commissioner. She has a short video on the presidential campaign. And Illinois Congressman Sean Casten from the 6th District will be updating us on this important race. We also will be discussing some of the progressive candidates that are essential in helping every voter gain a better understanding of the races and policies that affect our lives. So now, welcome, Sean.
Hey, good evening, all, and thank you, Ray. Thank you, Joe, for having me. I know we tried to do this in 2018 and had some scheduling issues, so delighted to see you. I mostly want to answer your questions because that's the most fun part of this job. As we were talking at the start, many moons ago, I took a year of classes at Second City, and I tell everybody, don't tell me what's going to happen because it's way more fun to improv. But just to give a little bit of bio, I'm basically in this job because of climate change. I got concerned about it as getting out of undergrad back in 1993. Got my first job working in a lab because everybody said you needed to get lab experience. Went back to get a master's in biochemical engineering, working on developing cellulosic biofuels to figure out how to make biofuels without depending on fertilizer-intensive crops. Went from there to work at Arthur D. Little as a technology consulting firm working on fuel cells and microturbines and batteries and all sorts of advanced energy technologies. And then spent 16 years as a CEO of 2 different companies. Both of them had a mission to profitably reduce greenhouse gas emissions. And our idea was that if we could make money by reducing CO2, people would copy us. And this is such a huge problem that unless we can leverage huge amounts of resources to do it, it's not going to matter. So that ultimately became a decent sized company. We invested a couple $100 million, had a couple 100 employees, built some 80 different projects. And we sold our company because I wasn't born with that kind of money in my pocket. And when your investors say it's time to sell, you sell. But had gradually come to the realization that, and I don't think the policy conversation understands this well enough. we were building 1920s technologies that were twice as fuel efficient as the electric grid and had a 4-year payback, sometimes 2-year payback. One project we did had an 8-month payback. Every economist will tell you that those things shouldn't exist, and every economist doesn't know a goddamn thing about how distorted energy markets are. And we got a lot of these done, but for every project we built a lot of projects. There were probably 10 we couldn't get done. And I basically came away and I was never politically involved, but I'd gotten involved in, at one point, in order to get a permission slip from the utility for us to connect to the grid. This was at a jail in Massachusetts. We spent 2 years trying to get the utility to allow us to connect to the grid. This is a zero carbon power plant. Was going to save our customer a bunch of money, but it meant the utility was going to lose a sale. And so they were throwing up all sorts of technical roadblocks. And finally, the guy who ran the jail looked at the guy from the utility and he said, "You got 2 choices in front of me. You can leave this building your way, or you can leave this building my way." And the guy from the utility says to him, "Are you threatening me?" And in his thick Boston accent goes, "Yeah, goddamn right, I'm threatening you." And I tell you that story not because I encourage violence. I tell you that story because the only reason that project got installed was because a guy in a prison had a firearm in the jurisdiction to use it. And that's a project that has saved them money to this day, has lowered CO2 emissions to this day, has done everything it should do. And I just came to this realization that there are no economic laws that stand in the way of us massively lowering CO2 emissions. There are no thermodynamic laws that stand in the way of us massively lowering CO2 emissions. But there's a lot of state and federal laws that stand in the way. And the good news about that is that I don't know how to change the laws of thermodynamics. I don't know how to change the laws of economics, but I know how to change the laws of the United States. And so when we sold our company, got into this seat, I now sit on the select committee on the climate crisis. You've probably seen the report that we issued, which is essentially a roadmap for how to get done. My good friend David Roberts at Vox described it as the most thoughtful and comprehensive program that has ever come out of Congress to address the climate crisis. I sit on the Financial Services Committee, which may sound surprising, except that the reality of anything we do to lower CO2 emissions lowers our cost of energy, which I don't think we fully internalize, which means that all we have to do is deploy the capital. Once you put a solar panel on your roof, you don't go to bed wondering what the price of power is going to be tomorrow. You just leave it on. Once you own an electric car, you don't worry about whether it makes sense for you to drive. You just drive it. All right. But we got to figure out how to get that capital deployed. So I sit in financial services to try to impact those capital markets to remove those barriers. And we have an opportunity. It's an economic opportunity. It's an environmental opportunity. But we don't have a lot of time to get it right. And I think the big challenge of this moment is, the good news is we've got the urgency to act, but we have to act. We have to act at a pace and a policy level of sophistication that's tough to put together. So that's why I'm here. I did not anticipate that having gotten elected, I would be elected into the longest shutdown in government history, and that would have not even cracked the top 10 of the craziest things of this first term in Congress. But happy to chat with you about anything that's happened in this term or expectation of next term or climate and otherwise. And I also serve on the Science and Space Committee, which is sort of a fun place to get involved in separate issues. But thanks for the time. Look forward to earning you guys' support and all your volunteer energy, because at the end of the day, this election, as I tell everybody, take nothing for granted in this election, but accept nothing less than a landslide. We need to have this election won by Halloween. And I mean, like, ballots in hand, received, not questioned. The Postal Service have the election won by such a margin that there isn't a Republican in the world who says, I can get by and have a path to being taken credibly unless I try to contest for the center of the electorate anymore. Because this QAnon nonsense, it's got to stop. So thank you.
So we'll move on to COVID. The next federal COVID relief legislation that's sitting between Nancy and Moscow Mitch. What do you think are the important parts of it? The $600.
Well, so we got to give a little bit of context here. Mm-hmm. The amount of money we're deploying into the economy is insane, right? I mean, we've already deployed almost $3 trillion. The HEROES Act is another $3 trillion. These numbers sound huge, but we spend about $1 trillion. The U.S. The weekly payroll expense of the entire U.S. economy is almost $1 trillion a week. So when we're looking at 10 to 15% unemployment, $3 trillion buys you roughly 6 months of cushion in the economy. And so we're sitting at a point where, because we have so botched, and when I say we, I mean Trump, we have so botched the response to COVID, we have created an economic crisis. And so if we don't put something on the order of $3 trillion into the economy, you do the math. If we put in $1 trillion, we're going to buy ourselves 2 months. If we put in, but we have to use that time to get the public health crisis under control. And there's a whole lot of things that are critical. We need the $600. We need to make sure that people get the stimulus checks. We need to basically put people in a position where, if you have to isolate yourself, you are not deciding between your health, your family's health, and your ability to pay rent, your ability to buy groceries, your ability to buy insulin, right? We just have to be decent and recognize that. Having said all of that, what I've said to the speaker is that my 3 red lines that I think are most critical is that while McConnell has basically taken the American people hostage in his negotiations, he's essentially hoping that the Democrats will cave because we don't want to see this much pain coming. And that is immoral. It makes me angry. But I think at the end of the day, the pain that is created by the loss of already 160,000 lives pales in comparison to the pain that happens if Donald Trump wins another election. And so what I've told her is that my top 3 are: number 1, getting the post office fully funded; number 2, making sure that we have the $3.6 billion for to have a totally safe vote at home election with all the resources that we've got to get people home; and number 3, to get all of the support for the states. We have $1 trillion in there for the states because so many of the services we depend on are really state-funded programs. And if the states run out of money, Medicaid stops, food assistance stops. Even if we funded the unemployment, that's funded through state programs. And
education stops.
Yeah, exactly. The police stop. I mean, you want to defund the police? Don't pass heroes. That's how you defund the police, right?
Yeah. I know.
And so so I think just keeping us vibrant. Those are my 3 absolute gotta have. If we don't get those 3, I'm not sure you can count me as a yes on the final package.
Interesting.
Now, having said that, there's a lot of other stuff in there that's critical, but those are the things that I think.
Those are showstoppers.
Why is it partisan to demand that everybody in our democracy gets to vote? For goodness sakes.
We were talking about trying to get you kind of make it a conversation and sort of using some of your improv skills. It's interesting because you have a lot of skills that are science-based that you are applying to environmental issues, possibly the Green New Deal. But there's a weird overlap right now because of COVID, because of what we're trying to do with COVID. And so I guess what I'd be curious about is if you're thinking of ways to somehow connect the two, can we get out of this crisis while at the same time revving up some of the programs that could be used to also get some of these environmental steps forward that we need.
So let me give you, there are massive parallels, and then I have some cautious optimism.
Okay.
The parallels is that when COVID first hit, you had people saying, I don't know, the president of the United States, there's only 5 cases. It's going to be fine. It's going to go away someday. And anybody who understands climate change, or for that matter, just understands compound interest, knows enough to recognize that geometric progressions are really scary. And when we were sitting there in those early days of COVID saying 5, 10, 20 cases, the next number in that sequence is not 15. It's not 25, it's 40, and then 80, right? And this doubling, and that's essentially the same dynamic as you have with climate change. We have a geometrically warming climate. When I was born in 1971, the atmospheric CO2 concentration was about the same as they've been for 100,000 years. It's now 25% higher. If we eliminated all CO2 emissions in the world yesterday, we still have another 2 feet of sea level rise that's coming. because of all these nonlinear events. So there's that parallel with COVID. There's the parallel that it's invisible and you don't see it. There's the parallel that solving this is a collective action problem. And, you know, it's a horrible thing to root for, but the fact that people are now seeing in real time what happens when you politicize science, I take some encouragement from the fact that if the election were held today and it was between Trump and Fauci, Fauci would win in a landslide. like I think the overwhelming majorities of Americans, whether Republican or Democrat or independent, there's a heightened respect for science. And I think part of our collective challenge at this point is to embrace that on a non-political lens, which is hard for all of us, right? We want to celebrate when it roots for our team, but we all want to embrace a non-political lens and to recognize, and this is what's really hard, is that science is at core not democratic. If we frame the response to, like, should we wear a mask, only a 50% or 51% of the country agrees we should wear a mask, that is a suicide pact. And yet, how many of us say, well, what do we need to do to swing public opinion around to deal with climate change? Why is that a relevant question, right? I mean, I got Fermilab in my backyard almost. I can ride my bike to Fermilab. Did anybody ever say we shouldn't invest in a super collider until the majority of the public was really hankering to figure out the basic fundamental causes of quantum physics? Right?
No.
Right?
Yes.
Like, science is not democratic. It's just science. And we have to talk about it that way, because what's necessary to deal with the climate crisis is so much greater than what is currently politically possible. And if we satisfy ourselves by saying, how do we get 100% of what's politically possible? We have failed our grandchildren.
Well, with COVID getting people sick, and then these sick people don't have health care, is there anything in the new legislation to help them get health care, at least for COVID? And does it relate to Medicare for all?
So let me take the first part of that question. We have, in the Families First Act, we waived all the copays for whether you're on Medicare, Medicaid, VA, Indian Health Services, private health insurance. There's no copays for testing. In the HEROES Act, we further waive all the copays for any treatment or viruses, so no one should have to pay anything for anything related to COVID. The reality of what's happening in Congress right now is that there is no bipartisan conversation on healthcare. Within the Democratic Party, you have complete agreement that we need universal health care. You have informed, thoughtful policy debates around what's the best way to get to universal health care. And there's rich conversations we could have about the number of payers. You know, is there a role for the private sector in some part of that? You know, how do you put some competitive discipline? These are all good policy conversations. There is no plan on the Republican side other than repealing the taxes that pay for that. And the proof of that is that one of the first bills we voted on was to give ourselves the authority as Congress to defend the ACA in court, because Attorney General Sessions decided not to defend it. I would submit to you, I think that's the first time in history that the Attorney General decided that it is not their job to defend the laws of the United States. Right?
Yeah.
We are now, if that Texas lawsuit succeeds, forget about whether you want the ACA or Medicare for all, like whatever you want, it's irrelevant, because the ACA has a severability clause in it, a non-severability clause. So if that Texas lawsuit succeeds, Medicare dies, Medicaid dies, the VA system, everything falls apart. You advocate for that suit if you want to kill people, period. The only people who have health insurance at that point is people who have enough money to pay out of pocket 100% of their coverage. It is so massively insane, and we don't even talk about that. But we're defending that in court right now. We, the House of Representatives, the Democratic House of Representatives, thank goodness we flipped the House.
God, yes.
Or else that lawsuit would not even be being defended. Now, on the other side, we've passed a bunch of bills. You know, we passed H.R. 3 to give Medicare the right to negotiate drug prices. A whole bunch of other things. That the one caution that I'd put And I am totally committed to getting us universal health care. Everybody should have health care. And if you can't afford to pay for it, you don't have universal health care, right? Affordability and accessibility are the same thing. I have some concerns that having worked as hard as we did to undo laws that said that no one can negotiate, that Medicare can't negotiate drug prices. The reason that law was passed is because the scale of Medicare as it is, it's like flypaper for lobbyists. And if we make Medicare bigger, the flies are just going to get hungrier, right? Yeah, so I think I would just I'm a little bit skeptical of Medicare for all as a model, not because I don't think we want universal health care, not because we don't want to get away to get it, but the idea that a massive government bureaucracy will somehow be completely immune from all the other pressures. You know, I liken it to our educational system. Everybody in our country has access to education. You at least K through 12, right? You can go to public school, you can go to parochial school, you can go to private school, but you're all covered. And if you live in rural Oklahoma and your only choice is the public school, and some crazies have come in and said we don't want to teach about evolution or climate change, you may not be totally wild about the fact that you don't have choices, right? And so I think we need to make sure that in our healthcare system, we still make sure that there's enough choice in the system to discipline folks who might corrupt that model. But that's the kind of conversation that you have if everybody talking about our healthcare system is an adult who cares about making sure that everybody has access.
That's all that counts. That's all. I mean, Norway works, Britain works, Europe has, much cheaper healthcare than we do in Canada at the same quality for the normal person. So it's out there. Joe, or shall I just keep going on?
Yeah, I know. I'm trying to move so my chair doesn't creak.
Blame the chair.
So, yeah, I'm actually going to jump and do the political question, and maybe we could do a BLM, Black Lives Matter question a little later. And I've kind of been waiting for this because, well, first of all, as you know, NDFA is all about how are you going to win, what is your strategy, how are you raising money, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. In your case, I keep thinking of a really good friend of mine who has a transgender stepchild. And their family has been active and battling the school board in Palatine, which has been one of the more reactionary school boards for that particular matter. And obviously he's in your district, and he is so revolted and petrified at the mere idea of Jeannie Ives being anywhere near power that every time she has run, he has switched parties to vote against her to try to even keep her off the ballot. So the way I would ask the political question would be, what can I tell my friend Paul to say, don't worry, we've got this. She's going to lose and you are going to win.
Well, look, this is a part of why I said at the start, accept nothing less than a landslide. After I won the last race, and my predecessor was not great on LGBT or general decency issues either. Wasn't as outspoken about it, but he's supported her campaign. His wife works for her. Like they're cut from the same cloth. After I won the race, I got a call from a reporter at the Washington Post, and he said, "What do you hope for 2020?" And I said, honestly, my hope, I want to run against someone I respect. Because I don't mean that in a mean-spirited way. I don't mean that in a selfish way. I think our democracy, I want to be in a Lincoln Douglas debate. I want to be where you have two candidates who are thoughtful, who are talking about the issues, who are engaged, who agree that we need to get from A to B and have strongly held opinions about what the best path is to get from A to B. I don't want to feel like we are going to go back to the Stone Ages if I lose.
Yeah, who have the same value system.
We'll be running against someone who has said publicly that teachers who support the LGBT community are like dirty old men in trench coats. That's a direct quote from her. How do you possibly sit there and say, I want to get a job in government so that I can hurt the most vulnerable, right? She's out there saying, she's chewing me out that my support for the Equality Act is going to mess up Title IX because it's going to cause kids to change gender so that they can compete in varsity sports. Like, are you kidding me? Like, I think about, like, as a hetero cis white dude, like, I think about all the angst I had about my own sexuality as a teenager, and like the thought of like, what I'm going to do is I'm going to pretend to be trans so that I can play girls tennis. Like, are you kidding me?
So how do you beat
her? As hard as we possibly can. Well, look, more seriously, I want to give you a very optimistic view of the whole country. And I mean this, I'm not just saying this to make it up. I mean this genuinely. The overwhelming majority of Americans, the overwhelming majority of the people in this district are good, fundamentally good people who share the values of all the folks on this call. And I can prove that in the polling. Because if you look at polling, not about are you a Democrat or Republican, not about who are you going to vote for at the top of the ticket, but ask people on issues. Like, do you, on all the culture war stuff, what side are you on? The good guys won the culture wars, right? Gay marriage, nobody's going, like, there's no significant population that's saying let's go backwards on gay marriage. Black Lives Matter. I was down before the last trip I did before COVID. I went down with John Lewis and we walked across the Edmund Pettus Bridge and with the Ruby Bridges and Bernard Lafayette and Jim Lawson, and just totally moving event. And we were there with those freedom riders who are still alive. They were saying that in '62, the summer of the Freedom Riders, 60% of the American population was opposed to what the Freedom Riders were doing. 75% of Americans today support Black Lives Matter, right? If you ask people about climate change, about science, they're on the right side of all these issues. Now, if you ask them, do you agree with Nancy Pelosi that? Do you agree with Donald Trump that? Do you agree with Joe Biden that? You get a different answer because that's a brand question. But the way we make sure that the values that we have are ascendant is we get out there, we knock doors, we run campaigns, and we talk about values and we talk about issues. And when we ask people questions about their morals and they answer with their religion, we say, you didn't answer the question. I asked you a question about morals. When we ask them a question about morals and they answer with their political party, we say, you didn't answer the question I asked you about morals, right? Because if you ask that, if you don't believe that the majority of Americans will do the right thing at the ballot box, then you don't believe in democracy, right?
Yes.
And I have too much faith in democracy. I have too much faith in the American people. And so as long as we have, like I said, the resources and the volunteering, not just in our race, I'm saying around the country, democracy is an awesome tool. And I thank you all for getting up and using it, because if you don't use it, if you just let it get rusty in the toolbox, it falls apart.
Yeah.
That's how we win, and that's how we win by a lot.
Sean, we want you to win one final question. Now that we can't do door-to-door, what types of events, what can we do to make sure that you do win? Can we send in postcards? What is your campaign revving up between now and November?
I'm sure Chloe can throw some things in the chat. We've been doing, I think one of the few things that is actually better post-COVID is phone banking, because we've been doing all these Zoom phone banking things where people are calling in, and we make, on any given night, we'll make 3,000 phone calls. And if you got a question, you can put it in the chat, and now everybody sees the answer to the question, and it's sort of more efficient from there. We are doing postcards, we're doing other stuff, but a lot of it is sort of digital and online right now. And well, there you go. I see it. I see the stuff popping up there. So pop in there, and if anybody's interested, click that Casten for Congress website, go to the volunteer page, and we will we'll hook you up with a great field team.
Great. That's right now why we're here and why we have you online. So, okay, I think, Joe, are we about at the end of this part of our show?
Yeah, we do. I know we need to let you go for another event, so we want to thank you, thank your team.
Yes.
And we're actually
Chloe too.
And Chloe too. I think we're going to figure out how to do the whole endorsement thing virtually, and we will definitely do that. Please keep in touch.
Thank you so much. Really appreciate what all you guys are doing, and stay safe, everybody.
You too.
Yes, you too.
All right.
The next portion of our show will be a small video about the Joe Biden campaign.
Short video.
Short. That's true. It is kind of big.
That's true.
And off we go. Oh,
we need some sound, Jerome.
And an elected delegate. Hi, DFA family. This is Mariana Spiropoulos, Commissioner at the Water Reclamation District and an elected delegate to the Biden campaign from the 5th Congressional District. Just wanted to share a few thoughts with you on why I am supporting Joe Biden. America is in crisis, and there's a public health crisis, which has left 150,000 of our fellow Americans dead and more than 4 million sick. There's an economic crisis, which has left tens of millions out of work, lining up for hours at food banks and wondering where they're going to go to sleep if they can't make their rent. And there's a moral crisis, which has left our nation reeling in anguish and anger over systemic racism, which is as old as America itself, but continues to hold back Americans in new ways each and every day. Yet at this defining moment, when America desperately needs a leader to bring us together, Donald Trump is tearing us apart. Refusing to do the one thing that would save our economy, stopping the virus, and inflaming racial tensions every day to distract from his failure. Millions of lives and livelihoods are on the ballot this November, and so is the character of this country, which is why we need to vote for Joe Biden. This is a man whose life, often in the face of unimaginable grief, has been dedicated to lifting up the people around him. And he doesn't just talk, he gets things done. President Obama turned to him to pass and implement the Recovery Act, the biggest economic recovery plan in our history. He helped pass the Affordable Care Act, which ensured 20 million more Americans, and he wrote the Violence Against Women's Act. But Joe also knows that we can't just go back to the way things were, because for too many Americans, the good old days weren't so good to begin with. That's why he'll work every day of his presidency to build back a better America. An America where everyone earns enough to afford rent, put food on the table, and set aside some savings for a rainy day. An America that is once again respected by the world, stands by our allies, and makes good on our word. An America where we don't perpetuate the injustices of our past, but march forward every day toward that more perfect union. Joe's faith in the American people has never been stronger, because he knows that when you give ordinary Americans a fighting chance, they do extraordinary things. And on November 3rd, our better angels can prove victorious once again, as long as we put in the work today. So please, on November 3rd, put on your mask with fire in your heart and vote for Joe Biden. Because we have no choice but to win this election, and together we will. Thank you.
All right.
thank you, Mariana.
Yeah. So again, we know we did not endorse President Biden, President to be Biden, the vice president during the primary season. So this would obviously be an option for those people that would want to be members, should we decide to endorse him and Kamala.
Yes.
So there we go. All right.
And off to the auction items.
Yes.
I'm excited about this.
Yes, indeed. So just for, as you all know, because we've been calling and emailing you, we've got one more meeting tomorrow, and it is our annual benefit, which we are also doing virtually. And the benefit is one part of the fundraising. And the other part that we decided to try to do is a silent auction because, well, what else could it be? Because it's video, right? Video and streaming and online. But courtesy of so many of you that have helped us, we have just a really big set of fun prizes from the absurd to the sublime. So we wanted to give everybody just a quick run through all of the prizes and all of our items. Available now. Go to northsidedfa.com.auction, and we're going to start with a mask. Why? Masks aren't something that we are auctioning, but any kind of donation, $100 or above, or any win of any of the online auction items, and you get a Northside DFA mask because this is the age we're in. So what can you bid on? I know you're wondering. Let's get to it. Jerome, first we've got two different party packs. We call them socially distanced party packs. It includes a couple of two of the masks, bottles of wine, which we assume you will drink without the masks, various munchies, $70, $75. Determine which one you want to bid on. They are each available. Next slide, next prize. This one I know has already gotten some bids from some folks within steering committee. It is Democratic candidates playing poker. It's a watercolor. It is inspired by those blue velvet dogs playing poker thing, but it's the Democratic candidates. They were so obvious. They put Kamala next to Joe Biden there. I'm trying to figure out who's cheating with Mayor Pete. Anyway, the current bid is $110 for that painting. Moving on, I really feel like, so the next two items are actually items donated in the memory of John Lewis. First, as you can see, is a photo of a march that he participated in with Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King, autographed by John Lewis himself. That's a $175 bid. And in addition is a movie poster. If you have not seen the documentary Good Trouble, it is available and you should see it. And this is a poster for that movie. It's a $65 bid currently. I feel like I'm on WTTW. Anyway, let's go on before we get to the update. As you know, our special guest is Jill Winebanks, and she generously donated two prizes. The first, an autographed copy of her biography, The Watergate Girl. For those of you that don't know, she was the only woman on the Watergate prosecution team. That's what the book is about. It is autographed. It's a $60 bid. And if you've seen her on MSNBC, you know that she is famous for her pins. So she's donated two of them, as you can see. One looks like just a little box of popcorn. And because she is also a Biden delegate for the convention next week, a Joe Biden pin as well. Both $60 with little autographed cards from Ms. Winebanks as well. We also have two really cool Illinois state prints, both of which feature various wildflowers and indigenous plants as painted, both framed by the artists Alicia Brinkley and Allison Hall. $75 bids for each. Again, not both of them, one for $75, the other for $75. You're just going to ask for the purple one or the multicolored one. One of my favorites. You probably have a lot of Obama stuff on your counter, but it's not complete. What will make it complete is this John McCain call to action figure, still in the box, just like the 40-year-old virgin, only for political nerds. It's a $25 bid. Very few of these things are left. It's a lot of fun. What can I tell you? We have two gift baskets with lots of items donated by merchants and shops and restaurants in Rogers Park. They include, I believe, pizza certificates, again, bottle of wine, the actual basket itself, cheeses, florists. One basket is $50, the other is $60. Also helps out some of the merchants that are struggling a little bit due to COVID. So those are two really sweet ones. We have three, and these are three Cubs ticket packages for 2021. Yeah, we know who their owner is. This is just about the baseball. So all of these packages are connected to two upper deck seats, 300 level. First, one of any seat for the 2021 season with a $100 bid. The second features tickets to the 2021 Crosstown Classic. You can go to the next frame, Jerome. So a Crosstown Classic ticket package. There's a $200 bid for that. And then the third one, also a different game, the Diamond Package. That includes parking. So if you live in the suburbs, come on in. Also a $200 bid for those Cubs packages. Oh, but you're not a baseball fan? That's okay. We've got hockey too. Or maybe you're just a Jim Cornelison fan. Who knows? Upper level, mid 300 levels for Blackhawks 2021 season. Again, there are 10 regular season games you're going to be able to select. We can now say they are a playoff team, which they are, and there's a $150 bid for those. How are we doing time-wise? Okay.
What good.
Good. All right. Here's another really cool political nerd thing. A set of 4 Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez starring comic books. And we decided to pick one with the squad because I think they all survived their primary challenges. You are bidding on, it's a $100 bid. You are bidding on all 4. I know there are I've seen a little bit. There are actually collectors that are interested in these comic books. So cool. Moving on. Now we're into the hardcore beverage portion of the silent auction. A selection of craft brews, because if there's nothing that we don't do, if there's anything else that we do at NDFA, it is drink beverages, sometimes adult beverages. So you have a selection of local craft breweries. Again, you are helping them by bidding. They're even some of them even have some T-shirts and koozies and such. So there's a $250 package for that. We have a combination beer and coffee package, which is a $500 bid. Again, it's a selection of craft roasteries and craft breweries. And if you're not into beer, but just like the caffeine, you've got up for $150 a selection of craft roasted coffee beans as well. Continuing on, for a $100 bid, this is a handcrafted set of jewelry by an artisan in Thailand. There you see the 3 different pieces. Moving on.
That's beautiful.
A set of 6 socks. So if you didn't like the comic books, but you wanted everything on your feet, where you've got a set of 6 iconic female figures. I see RBG, I see Pelosi, I see Elizabeth Warren. $50. Keep your feet warm. Stay inspired. What can you say? We just got these yesterday. This is insane. One of our steering committee members works for the National Restaurant Association and just got a bunch of gifts from Tabasco Company. So first, this package of about as many different kinds of hot sauces as you possibly can get, along with looks like some T-shirts and towels and hats. $70. It's Tabasco.
This is a good deal.
Yeah. We also, again, same thing, a date night Napoli style pizza. A pizza making class, apparently it looks like. A kit to make Napoli style pizza. Because there's booze involved, it's $21, or it's 21 and older to win that. $100 bid. A fan package. Again, we're north side, all right. Cubs, deal with it. Various Cubs paraphernalia, $125 bid. Again, if you go to the website, you can see all the detail. Here's the other insane Tabasco thing. Yes, you are looking at that right. It is a 150th anniversary Diamond Reserve bottle of Tabasco sauce. It's like the Cristal of Tabasco sauces. $100 bid. Why not? And then we also have a little grab bag of silly but fun little toys. Bernie Sanders dress-up doll, Hillary Clinton dress-up doll. Somebody did find a Hillary Nutcracker. I wasn't sure. But there you go. Again, lots of weird things for $30. And there you go. Wow. Whew.
That was impressive, Joe.
Somebody, there's one thing.
Information.
So one of those things you want to bid on. I know you do. And
everybody's
you'll find out
got to like something.
Yep. And when you look at come to our benefit tomorrow virtually, you'll see what you can get. We're going to keep the bids up to date as well. Please bid. It helps us. It helps our fellow
When do the
merchants.
bids end?
Tomorrow, I believe, at the end of the show. Someone can correct me if I'm wrong.
Okay, I thought it was a little later, but that's fine.
Yeah.
You know, the John Lewis autographed picture. I mean, that's something that's history.
Yeah.
That's something anybody would just want, and it would appreciate in value over time, considering what's going on.
Exactly.
I mean, that's just an incredible find you guys got from who knows where.
And again, prizes as low as 25, as high as 500, but those are the bids. You can bid more. And they all help us to keep doing the work we do, whether it's online or in person, and keep having candidates who win.
Help us help you make us and do a better society.
Which is a good segue into the final piece of today's meeting. Since we're a little short, a little light on guests, but what we're about to do may actually help us find some guests for the next couple meetings. Ray, you're on.
We're going to discuss if you go on to the DFA website, they have over 100 endorsed candidates. Not our NDFA. You can do that too and donate. But if you go on the DFA website, it's amazing. They have a picture of the candidates, and they're not just congressional candidates. They're mayoral candidates down to board member seats. It's just an amazing selection that they've done and put on. And I found that while I was looking for all kinds of different candidates. The first candidate is from the New York 16th Congressional District that won June 23rd, Jamal Brown, over a longtime regular Democrat, Elliot Engel. Jamal ran an energized campaign focusing on redirecting support for the poor and the middle class. That was a really big showstopper that proved progressive candidates in the normal Democratic races can win, and we're going to make a lot of progress this year.
Isn't he going to become part of the squad potentially?
Yes.
Okay,
yes.
that's what I thought.
There, all these people, if not most of them, are supported by something called the Justice. I don't want to say Justice League, but
back to the comic books. Justice Project, maybe. Anyway.
Yeah.
So if somebody knows,
Project.
put it in the comments. We'll pop it in.
But I saw that group behind a lot of different progressive people. The next interesting race is the Illinois 3rd Congressional District that we all know about, where Marie Newman defeated the staunch conservative, and I don't need to go any further, Dan Lipinski. She was endorsed by Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, and here they are, the Justice Democrats.
Justice Democrats. Thank you, Augie. Thank you, Sue Casten.
Yes.
All right.
And she was a former spokesperson for Moms Demand Action, as well as a lot of different other groups. So please support Marie. We desperately need her to win. It's an important election.
Is she running against another Nazi?
No. I think that, but
that would made it easier, but okay.
But I think most Republicans are turning into something close to that.
I don't know. There was that QAnon woman that won in Georgia yesterday.
Yeah.
Ooh.
So that's kind of where we're fighting against.
Mm-hmm.
The next one is Ferguson, Missouri, the 1st Congressional District. Cori Bush, a liberal activist and registered nurse. She defeated 10-term Congressman William Lacey Clay in the Democratic primary. She's deeply committed to Medicare for all, as well as a $15 minimum wage. And some of our essential workers were going to work for $9 an hour in Missouri, and she's trying to change that.
Yeah, she was one of. Yeah, she was. I've seen a few of her interviews. She was one of the people that organized the Ferguson protests 6 years ago. So she really laid the roots down for what we're seeing with George Floyd. And I know she is also going to become a member of the squad. So the squad is going to become an actual caucus. the way things are going.
Well, we do have the Progressive Caucus that's in the Senate and the House, and not enough of our current Congress people have endorsed and gotten into it, which is, we have, I can't remember all their names, but we need more Illinois congressmen to get into the Progressive Caucus. That's really important.
There we go. Okay.
The next person is the Tennessee Senate Democratic primary progressive in August 6th candidate Marquita Bradshaw won in a 5-person race with 36% of the vote. And here's the amazing part, with less than $25,000 in her campaign.
Wow.
Beating an alternative candidate on the Democratic side that had $1 million in his campaign. So that says a lot. She campaigned on environmental justice. She'd be a good buddy for Sean. And human rights.
They're in the Senate. That's a Senate candidacy.
Yes, that is. But they all got to work together to finance and pass legislation. So that's really important.
Okay.
The Minnesota 5th. Yeah.
I was going to say, I think they're running. I think if I read there were 2 doctors on the Republican side, neither of whom believe in wearing masks.
That's just where they're at.
Yep.
And I don't know. The Minnesota 5th Congressional District on August 11th, Ilhan Omar, one of the squad, won with 58% of the vote over a well-funded candidate that was put in place to defeat her.
Yeah.
And I learned through listening to Tom Hartman that 70% of that person's funds that they got in their campaign was dark money. That is money they couldn't figure out where it came from.
Yeah, and there was some concern about her. I think there was more concern about Elon than any of the other candidates had primaries. So, does it say whether she's going to have a Republican running against her, or whether that's a district is that a big deal or not?
It's a pretty well of a Democratic-run district.
Okay.
There will be a Republican, but once she gets in, that's pretty much it. And she likes to say that her Democratic constituents in Minnesota appreciate her using the national voice to pull for change.
Mm-hmm.
Yes. Then the other part of the squad, Michigan 13th Congressional District in Detroit on August 4th, Rashid Tlaib won the Democratic primary, a rematch against Detroit City Council President Brendan Jones. Rashid won decisively with 66% of the vote. So we're beginning to see where the progressive candidates aren't squeaking by anymore, but they're winning decisively in their races, and progress we are making.
Indeed. And so now, and as we now pivot from any other primary races that you're...
One more.
Go ahead.
One more. The Illinois Congressional 13th I wanted to bring up with Betsy Dirksen Lundgren, who lost 2 years ago to the Republican by 0.8%, Rodney Davis. In the March primary, Betsy won with 76% of her vote, or 48,000 votes she got, versus Davis only received 36,000 votes in an uncontested race. Betsy, who we should be working for, and Matt Martin is putting together a phone bank for her that everybody should be involved with. She wants quality health care for families and get the money out of politics, Citizens United.
Great. So is this where we should ask our friends for some help here?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
So as you know, part of our job on steering is to bring people to these meetings so that you can hear from them and decide who you would like to work for. In this virtual world, in some ways, it gives us a little more flexibility, but we really do want to try to bring people in. And this is what we normally do as we now go into the regular election. There are candidates that we supported in the primary that are going to be in good shape going into the general. Some will still need some help. And so if there are people here, if you have a candidate that you feel like fits with the NDFA mission and that you think would need some work, we would love to find some of those names. Pop them into the comment section here on Facebook. You can also email them to, was it info@northsidedfa.com? Please correct me if I'm wrong again.
I think so.
Okay.
Or just go onto the website.
Or just go to the
You can
website.
contact us
There
through
you
the
go,
website.
northsidedfa.com.
Jerome
So-
strikes again.
Thank you, Jerome. So we'll be lining up guests for our September meeting, particularly people that we have not heard from. October, we're going to try to bring in some people that we have heard from or that we have already endorsed that still have a little bit of work to do going into November, so we can do a little refresher, which is again what we would do if we were in town as well, and to gear up to and then especially in Illinois, because it's going to be honest, again, in this state, the big race is going to be the fair tax amendment. NDFA doesn't technically endorse issues, though we are greatly supportive of candidates who support the passage of the fair tax amendment. I think it's fair to say.
But we support Pritzker and a lot of other candidates who do support the fair tax amendment.
Right.
So,
but
legalese.
Right. But to help us know who people would like to hear from, whom you might want to work with and work for, that would be very helpful to us as we plot our meetings, our regular meetings here on Wednesdays. Anything else in the agenda that we have not touched on?
No, I just want to say thanks to Sean and Mariana for participating in the meeting.
Mm-hmm.
They were great and wonderful speakers. The steering committee elections will be put off till we meet face to face again. And we want to say thank you to Hard Lens Media and Jerome. We couldn't do this without you. And for the next future, you're our partner.
Yep, I want to thank EJ for taking my role backstage so that I could hop on here to take over for Sophia. I hope I somehow covered adequately enough for her. But if you're fans of Sophia, don't worry. All you have to do is come to tomorrow's benefit. She is co-hosting with Dan Biss for all of the frivolity of you're gonna hear from some of your favorite candidates talk about why they like NDFA. Those of us who are in steering are going to talk about NDFA. We have a special performance by my theater company, DB Comedy, a special dramatization of the Rod Blagojevich phone calls called The Arrogance of Those People. And of course, an interview with Jill Winebanks. And we're going to wrap up with Dan Biss juggling. We're trying to get him to juggle something sharp and on fire. We'll see if we can do that. But we'll see all of that tomorrow. Don't forget to bid on all of those items. Anything else, Ray?
No, I think we've reached the end of our show, and say adieu or something like that.
See you tomorrow. See you in September.